Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm John Barber, and this is where we talk NFL and college, and we're going to review the Texas Tech Utah game that just ended. So, this game was pretty close for maybe the first half. It was kind of ugly in the first half. We had 5 turnovers in the first quarter, I think. And, it just looked like nobody could hold on to the ball. Both quarterbacks seemed to be happy to throw the ball to the other team. Linebackers were punching the ball out. It's not at all what you'd expect from a Utah team. I think people imagine Utah as a team that plays with some ball security, and with Texas Tech, they came in as one of the more highly rated teams in this conference. But that was just an ugly first quarter as related to ball security. But then as the game went on, it became quite obvious that this Utah offense is quite limited, and this Texas Tech defense is for real. So we know about I think they had the second overall transfer class, and we know they brought in some serious players in the front 7, and it looks like those players are legit, and this defense is legit. And, overall, if beating Utah down like this, 34-10, if this is a sign of a good win in this conference, then Texas Tech looks like they might be the front runner. In the offseason, we were hearing about Utah's offensive line, and Whittingham was saying this is the most talented offensive line he's ever had. Well, it didn't look like it today. They could not handle the Texas Tech front 7, and they just, 100 yards rushing, okay, but that's not necessarily the type of performance I think Utah expects out of this team. Devin Dampierre, they kind of bottled him up. He didn't have a great game, 25 for 38. And two interceptions. But then on the ground specifically, 11 carries for 27 yards. So he just didn't really hurt them on the ground. And I think some people might have got the impression that Utah maybe is better than they are with that beatdown of UCLA earlier this year. They just completely throttled them. But then after a few weeks, we realized beating UCLA is not that big a deal. New Mexico also blasted UCLA. So it could have given us an inflated sense of how good Utah really was and how effective Dampierre would be. And here against Texas Tech, they were basically neutralized for almost the entire game. Utah was sitting on 3 points for 3 quarters here. Baron Morton goes out on the first drive of the second half with I guess a concussion on an odd play where he slid head first. And the defender, I think, caught him in the helmet with his shoulder, but not his helmet. The defender's shoulder hit Morton in the head. Either way, it was a pretty violent hit, and it's clear he must be concussed. As of the time of recording, we don't have a report on his injury, but it looked like he was concussed. But to me, the story of this game and what might be the story of the Big 12 season, or a major story, is Texas Tech, I think, has 2 starting quarterbacks. So if you remember last year, there were stretches where Will Hammond had to come in last year, and they didn't look like they missed a beat with him. And this game, you could argue they got better with him. In the first half, Baron Morton went 12 for 19, 142 yards, but 2 picks. In the second half, when Hammond came in, he goes 13 for 16, 169 yards, 2 TDs, no picks. And Hammond goes 8 for 61 on the ground. If that's the production you're going to get out of your backup quarterback, I don't really know that you could look at that and say there's any downgrade here at all. Like, this team to me, this team's built to win the conference championship with that kind of depth at QB. There's good players all over this team. We know, as we discussed the transfer class, we know this defense was going to be good. The offense, Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker, he had 11 tackles, 5 solo, and he had that punch out where he forced a fumble. So this team looked on it. This was just the much better team on that field, even though they took, I think, 8 false start penalties. That crowd was. Apparently they kept stating in the broadcast that's the loudest stadium in the Big 12, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure they've got their facts right, at least on that one. And Texas Tech goes 14 penalties for 122 yards. And I think 8 were false starts. And Klatt kept saying on the broadcast, like, why are they still going back to the clap cadence instead of the line doing it. But I mean, they kept going back to it, and you can't really argue with the final score. But throughout the game, it did look a little maddening if you're a Red Raiders fan, watching them just take false start after false start, but then going back to the clap count and then realizing they can't hear it. So they didn't do themselves any favors there. And even though this is a big, 34-10 is a big gap in score, it could have been even worse if the Red Raiders didn't kept taking all those false starts. So, and on the other side, Utah had 2 penalties for 10 yards. I mean, that's a coach's dream, to basically have a perfectly clean. I mean, 2 penalties. That's you almost never hear about a game where you take those few penalties. So overall here, I think we're looking at, okay, it's only been 4 games, but that was a much bigger gap in talent on the field, or I don't know, it just looked like Texas Tech was just the better team, just everywhere on the field. And I came into this game thinking this was going to be a lot. I mean, Utah was favored, and now that's probably partly because of the home field advantage, and partly maybe an inflation of thinking they're better than they are after they blasted UCLA. I mean, you could say, well, that's a Big Ten team, but now we all know beating UCLA is kind of a meaningless data point because everyone beats UCLA and everyone kicks their ass. So maybe that inflated the line here and made it seem like Utah's better than they are, but they really couldn't play. They couldn't be on the field there with Texas Tech. They just weren't as good as them. And if Utah is even a decent team, then Texas Tech is really, really good. So I don't know if this game is indicative of Utah is just going to get beat down by everybody in the Big 12. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But I also don't think the Red Raiders are going to beat down everyone in the Big 12. But somewhere in here, I think it's an indication that there's a gap between at least these two teams, and the Red Raiders look like they're for real. And I think we got a little bit the media and obviously the sports books got a little bit over their skis with Utah because they really weren't in this game. I mean, they gave up 484 yards in offense, 173 on the ground, 310 in the air, and they only put up 260 yards of offense, and like 100 of that was in the fourth quarter when they were like really desperate to get back in the game. So, I mean, for 3 quarters they were at 160 yards of total offense. So that's just not going to get it done. And I think part of that is a statement on how good the Red Raiders defense really is. So, I mean, I think Texas Tech is for real. It seems as though the investment being made into the team looks like it's paying off. Again, we're only 4 games in, but that if you could say that was a statement win, I think it's somewhat of a statement. The rest of the Big 12 should be on alert on both sides. Utah didn't look as strong as I think people expected them to look, or at least I expected them to look stronger than that. And the Red Raiders looked really strong. So that was a hell of a performance. And again, I don't think it matters if Baron Morton's out. Will Hammond, I don't see the difference. Will Hammond's just as good as Morton. Or at least it doesn't, in this game, there was no drop off. And last year when Hammond came in, I couldn't see a drop off. So they have a luxury of having 2 completely capable starting quarterbacks. I know Morton came in with some high expectations because we know that the Red Raider offense can fly. And I think it can fly with both of these quarterbacks. So, and on the other side, Dampierre might have come back down to earth here. He got neutralized in this game, and previous performance notwithstanding, it's maybe the hype around Dampierre was a little premature. So again, it's one game here that Utah's lost. They're 3-1, but to me that was a statement win for Texas Tech, and I think the Big 12 needs to be on alert here because that was. Texas Tech looked really strong, and they looked really strong in all phases of the game, and including depth and including the ability to overcome a 14 penalty, 122 penalty yard game. So it wasn't a clean game by any means. I mean, they turned the ball over twice, but Utah turned the ball over 4 times. Again, just not something you expect out of Utah, but you've got to give Tech credit. They forced some of those turnovers, and it wasn't just Butterfingers on Utah's side. Like a few of those, 2 of the 2 fumbles were forced. So that's a credit to the Red Raiders defense. I think Texas Tech's for real. And Utah is yet to be determined if this was just a stinker of a performance, which I don't think it is. I just think the Red Raiders are that much better than Utah. Anyway, so that's all I got for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, if you're still with me, I super appreciate you checking the channel out. I know it's super small. We just started it last year. So I super appreciate it if you can give it a like and a subscribe. It would really help us grow the channel. And other than that, stick around. We're going to have a couple of other games we're going to cover throughout the weekend. All right, we'll catch you later.